Hi, everybody. It is Monday, May 3rd, and we're just going to get started with our Monday meals. Just waiting for Kenneth Tang from APEN and Shaketa from Causa, Justa, Just Cause to join us. And if you haven't already, you should think about grabbing your lunch because this is lunchtime, Monday meals. And so we're hoping that the food that we're talking about also fills your heart. And y'all can meet my child who doesn't want to be seen on camera, apparently, and wants to come steal my lunch. But in all fairness, she helped me make that lunch. Oh, so here comes Kenneth. Let me have them join. Hey, Sanjay. I see Sanjay. I see Alvina. I see APTP. Thank you for joining. Hey, Ken.
Hi Liz,
How are you?
I'm doing great. Happy Monday.
Woo
Happy May.
woo. Monday meals. Oh, yes. Did you do anything for May 1st for International Workers' Day?
I did not, but I was out there enjoying myself in the spirit of International Workers' Day.
Yay, yay,
I
yay.
was traveling with my partner over the weekend.
Nice, nice. Um, I we my some folks in the community at E14 Gallery who Viviana Rodriguez, she does this amazing thing where she does these pop-ups. E14
Mm.
Gallery only features 95% POC Oakland artists, and she does a pop-up on Saturdays out in front on Old Oakland, near Old Oakland on 9th and Broadway. And she did an API market for API Heritage Month to start off the
Mm.
year. And my daughter, my oldest daughter, was vending there. She was selling her art. So I feel really proud of her. And it was amazing.
That's
The
amazing.
crowd was amazing. There was so many great vendors and people and so much support in the community. It was really great.
Oh, that is very inspiring to see. To see the community come together and support each other.
Yeah, totally. So we're just waiting for Shaketa Redden from Causa Justa Just Cause to join us. But while we're waiting, what are you eating for lunch, Kenneth? What are you having for lunch?
Currently, I'm just drinking some coconut water, but lunch is in the making. Got some drumsticks and veggies and rice.
Ooh, drumsticks. How do you make them? What do you do?
Air fry. My
Nice.
got an air fryer over Christmas, and it's been a time saver and a lifesaver.
Isn't it the best?
So it it's amazing.
What else do you cook in your air fryer?
Wait, did you just say your dad
Um,
bought you an air fryer?
Brussels sprout, salmon fillet, um, yeah, there's just different veggies like cauliflowers, just whatever I don't have time for, just throw in there.
Hold on. It looks like Shaketa is trying to join us, but it doesn't seem to be working. Oh no. Okay, let me try again. Here we go. I'm going to send your request again.
Whatever I don't have.
Yay!
Yay!
Yay, yay, yay! Okay,
Welcome,
sorry.
welcome.
Shaketa, Ken was talking about something super important about how and what he uses in his air fryer because it
Got
is
it.
now an essential tool in the kitchen. I make fish. I love to make fish in my air fryer, but I also really like pork belly.
Ooh.
Mm,
It makes a huge mess because it's pretty oily,
I would imagine so.
but it makes it so nice and crispy. It's perfect.
It's not good.
So let's go ahead and do some introductions really quick. Thanks for joining. So I'm Liz Suck. I'm the Interim Executive Director for Oakland Rising Action. And, um, we are a collaborative of 9 organizations that do base building work in Oakland, that bring political and electoral power to the flatlands of East and West Oakland for Black and Brown communities. And so, and Causa Justa Just Cause and APEN, and Asian Pacific Environmental Network, both are part of the Oakland Rising Collaborative. And so, and we are all working on our budget, and working for very specific things for the budget for Oakland that we're trying to pass by June. And so we're here today to talk about housing, and specifically how are we creating a budget that is going to take us beyond recovery, beyond COVID, to a place where folks are really thriving, and wanting to talk about housing, because this has been an issue in Oakland for a very, very long time. And this is really an opportunity for us to really talk about housing in a different way, right? Perhaps in the same way, but this is an opportunity for us to really hammer home, because the COVID has really impacted our communities, and now folks are really waking up to the reality of what's really happening for Black and Brown communities and immigrant communities in Oakland. So let's just do quick introductions of who you are. And if you're eating anything, I'm having crackers and cheese that my child Senna made for me. Can I show you, Faith?
Can I tell you something? Okay, so how you make a perfect apple slice is that you put little tiny slits in it, like a bunch. You put like a lot of like little like cut it like that, like in like a fancy anime or something. How they go, and then just cut it like this, and then
you have the tiniest little cubes.
Yeah, little slices.
Thank you.
I like them.
That's what she's having for lunch. That's not the only thing I feed them, though, y'all.
No, I had tenjangjiga.
Oh yeah, you had tenjangjiga. Cool. That's right.
And crackers.
Okay, so why don't we go first? Shaketa, why don't you go first? Tell us who you are, what you do. Tell us the things, what you eating, if you're eating anything.
First and foremost, I am eating oat yogurt. Okay. It's kind of run. I'm like, I eat breakfast really late, and today it is like going into lunch, and I'm having also these sprouted quinoa granola stuff. This stuff is fire. Like, if y'all, I gotta just so y'all know. And yeah, what up, Sina and Luna in the background. So I'm Shaketa Redden, and I am the Interim Executive Director of Causa.
Woo woo! Y'all didn't hear that? The Interim Executive Director for CJJC. Woo woo!
Today is my first as Interim ED. And yeah, I mean, I organize. Causa Justa is an organization that organizes Black and community at the forefront, and we also organize poor working class folks. A big part of our work has been housing work, and then the other side of our house is a community rights side that organizes around youth rights and as well as immigrant rights work. I've been with the organization for just over a year. I moved from Buffalo, New York, which is where I was born and raised and love very much. And was doing some organizing work there with a project that I started with a friend called Black Love and the Rust, until I was asked to come over to the Bay. And I'm very excited to be here. Thanks, Liz, for the invitation. And I hope I can do this conversation some justice.
I'm pretty sure you will. Tell us about you, Kenneth. What's up?
Hi everyone, my name is Kenneth Tang with Asian Pacific Environmental Network. I just transitioned to my new role being the Oakland Oakland Community Lead Organizer.
Nice.
Thank you. Yeah, a little bit about APEN, Asian Pacific Environmental Network. We've been doing grassroots organizing on environmental justice issues, and housing has definitely been a big part of our work. We want to be able to organize Chinese immigrant, low-income workers, seniors, for the Oakland side and the Richmond side around refugees, Laotian refugees. Be able to allow folks to be grounded in their roots, and how can we build roots without a stable home? So housing has been a really big part of our work in our environmental justice landscape perspective. So yeah, we definitely trying to bring in commitment to have authentic immigrants and refugees leadership.
Yeah, and that's been amazing work that APEN has been doing. Y'all don't know, actually, APEN, when I was a young wee college organizer, APEN was my very first phone bank I ever did was through APEN back in the day. And so I'm so thrilled to be part of Oakland Rising and then be doing this work with APEN because they have been doing the organizing for 20 plus years, y'all. Like, this is when I was in undergrad, was 20 something years ago, 25, 26 years ago. So to like see APEN still doing the work and to the expansion of the work that they've been doing for that long is amazing. So check both of them out, CJJC and Oakland Rising and APEN, and make sure that you check out the work and find out a little bit more about the work. But I just want to catch us up on where we are with the budget process here in Oakland. So we are on track to try to get this budget passed in Oakland through City Council by June 30th. And I also, y'all haven't, if you haven't heard, this weekend, May 1st, Mayor Libby Schaaf was supposed to have their budget prepared and presented and made public. And she failed to do that against a mandate that she put out in when she was pushing for when she was in City Council, right, to push to have the budget passed by the mayor by May 1st, so that by May 15th, all of the City Council members will have been able to have town forums and public hearings so that the public can weigh in on the mayor's budget. And we don't have that. We don't know what the mayor's budget looks like at this point. And so, but what we do know is that she's trying to turn it around and tell us that, everybody kind of fudges around deadlines, although she's always trying to push and be a stickler for those deadlines when it comes to City Council. And it only behooves her when it helps her out. And so it's really divisive. I know a lot of folks out there are trying to say that this is not a divisive move. It's a pandemic, be more gracious, but it actually isn't. It's a pattern by this mayor to really push us in a position where our community doesn't get to have a say in how and respond in a timely manner. Even if we look at, for example, Howard Terminal, right? We have this EJ report, this environmental report that came out, and it was like thousands of pages, and they wouldn't give the public enough time to read those thousands of pages, right? The impact report. And so just barreling through that. And so this is another pattern. It's like to give us a very short amount of time to respond to her budget. And what we do know is that housing is not one of her priorities. She's a lot of talk about that. And so I want to hear from you all, like, what are some of the things that APEN and CJJC, but with the Refund Coalition, is really working on for this budget that we're fighting for around housing? Anybody want to go first?
I think so. Budget, think about them as, like Dr. King said, is a moral document. And as you said, right, like this mayor has shown, right, by this budget what she cares about. And in fact, right, at one point a few months ago, we started trying to push our communities against each other and, like, right, and get more funding or get funding back in for policing, which is ridiculous, right?
Right.
A big part of what we've been talking about is how do we cancel rent and cancel debt, and that's generally speaking across the board. Doing a lot of work on that in the state, but thinking about how we push to have that happen across the region, both Oakland and San Francisco, because, right, we're gonna be in a crisis of, again, like a eviction tsunami, right? Like,
Exactly.
We know because of COVID, although we've had the eviction moratoriums that we fought so hard to get, just as one layer of protection for our folks, that we're gonna see as soon as, like, the city or the states open back up, right? The governor said back up June 15th, which is ridiculous, as we see what's happening. Yeah, and today, that strand for us. So, right, we're not done with COVID.
Right.
That we need to continue to fight for our people, and how we're going to push for the government, social services, whatever, to take care of our folks and be able to have a safety net. And we also know, right, with the eviction tsunami means that there will be an influx of police, right? That aspect of the budget is going to go up because we know that the police are just out here to harass our folks, right, and not protect. So,
and the police are the ones that come out and evict our people.
Exactly, right? They're coming out to evict our people, and then they're coming to harass our folks. And so I think pushing, like, making sure that we have certain levels of housing protection, right? Making sure that we are canceling rent and canceling debt, because if our folks can't even pay for rent, right? We've heard of folks who are not paying certain bills to be able to pay their rent because they are being harassed by landlords, right? When that happened based off of the moratorium. And so that means that folks are in a continual amount of debt as well. And so I think it's both layers to be fighting for protections and to make sure that our budget actually goes to where we need it, and not, like you said, our folks just being okay. So.
Yeah, and our current city council at this moment has really fought to ensure that there is some money that will go to some rent relief, right? And I really want to give props to the progressive city council leaders, like City Council President Nikki Bass, District 3 City Council Member Carol Fife, and Rep at Large Vice Mayor Rebecca Kaplan, because they have been really working hard to ensure that some of those things are happening, right? And so there is some relief there, but it's definitely not enough in terms of where and how we're talking about, like, sustainable long-term housing stuff, right?
That's what it, and I think you hit the nail on the head, right? Like, that's what we're thinking about, is like how we're actually creating a future that we want for our protected wear people. We talk about, like, this vision of liberation, and, like, part of that is, like, folks having their needs met, right? And what is more than housing, right? Like, come on.
Exactly. So, you know, CJJC is really thinking about that cancel rent, cancel debt, but there are some, like, kind of specific things in this Just Recovery budget that Refund Coalition is really pushing. And Ken, I wonder if you might be able to talk about a couple of those, because like there's some really good ones that are like preservation of affordable housing, right? Like expand the use of hotels. So what is that? What are those things, and how does that look like? What does it mean?
I mean, before I go into that, I just want to comment to your question earlier,
Of course.
around like how are folks feeling about some of our mayor's action, and there are no excuses, for her to like how she came out, like given her background,
Right.
or her history with Oakland, like she know how important like every budget year is.
Yes.
And how can we, like as a community, hold her accountable? We can't just like let her go. It's like, oh, this is something because of COVID, XYZ, this is the reason why I delay. I mean, they know the important issues, and they have been, I'm sure they have been working on a budget priority for months now, and there's no, as a mayor, someone with power, you can't just let somebody go just saying, oh, it's because of these reasons we are delayed. I think as a community, we just need to be able to hold accountable. That's why, speaking of Councilman Five, she ran on her platform on accountability, on transparency.
Yep.
We need more folks, we need more candidates who are similar, be able to present the community with that transparency, to let us know, like, Oakland is not about backdoor deals, which previously has been, with different like police scandals and such. How can we as a community do our duty and do our responsibility to hold like people who are elected from us, accountable?
Yeah.
So there are definitely more we can do to address that.
That's right. Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you so much for that, because that is so real. It's like, how do we hold this mayor accountable to that? And really just big props to Councilmember Carol Five for that transparency. And also to, Council President Bass, because she has really also really tried. She's the one who posted at first, right? On May 1st, put out a letter, and she's getting a lot of flack for that. And, because she's calling the mayor out. And I think she's holding the mayor's feet to the fire, which she needs to. And she owes that to all of us. And every single council member owes it to all of Oaklanders to hold the mayor accountable. Because what we all don't know, what a lot of people don't know, is that the city council passes the budget. So the mayor proposes their budget, city council responds, the public gets to respond, and then there's a new budget that then gets created and then gets passed through city council. And then after that, it's the administration and the mayor who implement it.
Yeah.
So that whole thing about the report that came out saying how horrible our housing and our homeless program was without a plan. It was under her administration that they failed to create that plan.
Right.
They took all that money, wasted it, no plan, no implementation. And so now we're in the situation that we're in at this moment. So I really appreciate you saying that, because we do need to hold them both accountable. Like city council, give us the budget.
Right.
Mayor, make sure you do the job and do it right.
Exactly. Yeah, and to go back to your question earlier around some of the housing goals that the Refund Coalition is looking towards. Like right now, we've been through COVID, and there's a state order around shelter in place. How can folks be able to shelter in place when they don't have a shelter, right? We want to, in our Refund Coalition, we really have a visionary where be able to utilize all these spaces that are not being used, be able to provide different shelter to those who are unhoused. And And for years, the Oakland affordable housing have been on decline. There hasn't been, we definitely not building as much as we intended to build, and that's always have been issues. Like we always have seen, there are multiple news and also through our work where there are thousands, hundred of thousands apply for affordable housing, just
Yeah.
for like 30 something units. And
And
we
also, can
see
I just jump in with
seniors.
this, Ken, is that we have a gluttony of at market rate housing. So many vacant units that can easily be turned into affordable housing, but aren't. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like
No, it's okay.
I want folks to know that too, right? It's about the
Yeah,
affordable housing piece.
and for us at our work, we see a lot of seniors who lined up at like 6 p.m. for 12 hours, like Black Friday shopping for affordable housing, and just to be on a wait list. It's not necessarily they would camp on the street, just for the opportunity, for a slim chance of opportunity for affordable units. So the city is not providing enough. And earlier you mentioned about preservation, and that's something that APEN has also been working alongside others like CJAC, to think about preservation in Oakland. What does preservation mean? Is basically try to preserve the current Oakland housing stock and transition them into nonprofit affordable unit, either owned by a nonprofit developer or by land trust. Be able to take these private housing off the speculative market and turn them to affordable housing. And one of our key goals in the Refund Network, Refund Coalition, is definitely try to ask for more funding to do this preservation. And in the past year or two, we have seen preservation work. We have seen houses that are turned into that are owned by community land trust. And it's something that we are trying to reimagine a different system of housing, because current housing system is not working for us. Like, look how many Bay Area have been in crisis for years now, and there aren't any solutions to it. And this is something that we are throwing down on to preserve Oakland, to preserve community, allowing community to be sustainable, allowing community to build community together, to not always have to worry about, am I going to get this place this next month? Am I going to be afford to what folks were sharing around, like the eviction tsunami that potentially happened.
Right.
How can we prevent these, like be proactive instead of reactive, So we preservation is a platform for us to think, how can we change that? How can we propose alternative to create a more sustainable home for everybody?
Right. And I think, Shaketa was mentioning earlier the moratoriums, right? And I think that is another part of it, is like oftentimes we hear about like folks we are talking about like long-term goal setting, right? But then people need relief right now. And so that's another big piece of it. So that's why CAJC, APEN, Oakland Rising also did a lot of work last year around the beginning of COVID, because we knew it was coming, right? It was like, oh shit, this is happening. We got to do something about it. So we were pushing almost monthly to try to get the eviction moratorium put in place. And that saved a lot of people from losing their homes, but it also put them at risk for this incredible amount of debt, right? Because that just postponed them getting kicked out, but it didn't help them with their rent. So that's another piece of this, right? Is also thinking about how do we provide rent relief and assistance to families who really need it, because it was our communities, it was Black and Brown communities that are at the forefront of losing work, losing their jobs, and then also at risk for COVID because they were the essential workers, right? They were the ones who were doing our deliveries. They're the ones at the grocery stores. They're the ones in the restaurants. So, so this is also a really key piece. And so, yeah, I wonder what that relief looks like. What are the ways in which we can bring that relief? And I think a confusing piece, I know what it means, but even I know, and then even my mind, having grown up here and under a capitalist system, go, well, how do you just cancel debt? And I said that in front of my kids, and my kids were like, my daughter, who's 12, looked at me and goes, money's imaginary.
Right.
They
It's fake,
just
right?
erase it if they want. And I was like, oh, that's right. Thanks, babe. You know? So, but like, so, I mean, can you speak a little bit about that? Because I think a lot of people don't get that piece. Like, what does that mean? And how does that really bring relief to people?
I mean, I think, like you said, right, money is essentially is fake, right? Like we have this like treasury, they could go print more money when they want, and like, you know, we go like trillions of dollars into debt every year, whatever, as a country, and right, like it's like, how is that ever sustainable, right? It's because that it like doesn't exist. I know it sounds like really trippy dippy or whatever, but it really is, right? We have like space to be able to like give protections where protections need to be, right? Like we think about all the time how like corporations, large businesses, banks, right? They all every one of those folks or large like entities,
Yeah.
capitalist structures, right, are protected, are covered.
Right.
And then what ends up happening is that we end up like we get the brunt of that as our folks, right? Because the world is built on our backs. And so, and we end up getting the bottom straw of that, the bottom piece of everything, right? So it's like we don't own any aspect of the means of production, but we're just supposed to like continue this labor. And then there's no way of no protections for us. And so I think that like part of what we talk about is like, how are we thinking about community control? And I think what's important, Liz, too, is like you said, like we're organizing for the future, and so that we're not constantly have to be proactive. And I think if anything, COVID has shown us one, like the possibilities of what could be,
Right.
you know, nationally, with some places like actually like getting rid of their police departments, but also like that being in the forefront of the conversation. And I think that that lends itself in a lot of ways of thinking like, oh, well, if this is millions and millions of dollars, how can we actually use those millions and millions of dollars to create protections for our people so that we're not continually being at the bottom? And then how do we take that and actually start to develop and think about real, actual community control?
Yes.
Right? Like, what does that mean?
Yes. And I also think that one really big component is like, you know, when COVID hit and whenever there's a crisis, whenever there's an uprising, the first people out there as first responders are artists.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I know I've done this, and I know that organizations do this. I know a lot of movement people do this. I know business does this. They call in the artists just to come in, but we don't think about them as like essential to our communities, right?
Yeah.
And so like, how do we also think about housing as like, can we create a part of housing that's just for artists? Like a portion of this going towards artists, right? To ensure that they have housing. Because where would we be without art, without music, without culture, without all of those things? And so I just want to put that in everybody's ear too, to just be thinking about the reimagination is, right? Because how many times you all hear about the struggling artist?
Yeah. Right? Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. They like, you know, they have it's a visual language, or not even just visual language, but for like fine artists, it's a visual language, or artists who use their hands, but have always been at the forefront of every movement. You know what I mean? Like, if you think about it, like you think about all of the movements, we have artists that connect to that. We have music that connects to that. And that also is a part of our resilience practices too, that keep us going, right? And so, yeah, how are we thriving and surviving without these folks?
Right.
And I think you're right, because also being able to have place to house our folks. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to provide this like contribution to us
Right.
in our resilience practices. I think you're right on.
And I think this, because when COVID hit, right, Chinatown was really hit hard.
Mm-hmm.
And Chinatown businesses, I know this happened across the city, across the country, but Chinatown was especially hit hard. And organizations like Good Eats and APEN and other folks shifted a lot of their work to like really figure out how to bring food to people, how to help sustain some of those businesses in Chinatown. And like, that's also culture. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it is in my culture. Like food is like a huge thing. I was up until midnight last night, y'all, making kimchi because
Oh yeah, let me get some.
I can't. Because I probably made too much.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I think that that's a big piece of it. And these are the people that we're talking about. Like people who make your food are culture makers.
Mm-hmm.
They're the culture keepers. They're the ones who are like they're not only sustaining us, they're not only like keeping us alive, but they're also maintaining the culture of things. I remember like talking about kimchi making. I remember moving at one point when I was very young from the West Coast, and we were moving to Illinois to this like very very white neighborhood, and my mom went and bought boxes of cabbages because she was afraid that when she got there they wouldn't have Napa cabbage, so she couldn't make her kimchi. Because what would a Korean be without her kimchi, right? Mm-hmm. And so like that too, how do we really understand that the people in our communities are actually culture keepers? Mm-hmm. And I wonder if you could speak a little bit about that, Ken, because I know Chinatown was really hit by it, and APEN created a fund. So did CJJC, right? Y'all created funds for your people so that they could eat.
Yeah, I can definitely speak on it to kind of think back. Historically, I mean, our system right now, and even pandemic, they really, they really propose isolation to everybody. And that's what have drawn community like apart, family apart, is around isolations. And for us during the pandemic, like we just have to make a lot of different pivot due to like the landscape of shelter in place. How can we break down that isolation, like allow people to still feel connected, to make them feel there are people who care about them.
Yeah.
Apparently the government doesn't, but there are people that in our organization, our community, who really does, and who really want to reach out to help those who are feeling the hurt, feeling isolated, feeling depressed. And that to what you said, Liz, like the cultural piece is very important, and it's what makes us to feel connected with one another. And we might not understand, even with different folks in different community, we might not have the same language,
right?
But a lot of time we share similar things, and we connect through different culture. Mm-hmm. And that's like a really big part of to organizing, to building relationships, to building community together. Because at the end of the day, it's the community who have each other's back.
That's
so
right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And I think that, we have seen in Oakland, and I just want to be really clear that I don't think it was Mayor Libby Schaaf's responsibility, because it predates her. It predates her to Jerry Brown. It predates her to the mayors before them that really disinvested in our communities, but that this current mayor has really spent her entire tenure in her position disinvesting from our communities. I've lived in Oakland since I was 10 years old. I lived in deep East Oakland during the crack pandemic. and through the crack era and the violence, and when Oakland was considered homicide capital of the world, right? The reason why people are quote unquote afraid of Oakland, not only because of their racist attitudes, but I have never seen Oakland so dirty and so trashed and so untaken care of. The amount of disinvestment, and when I drive down the street, and I'm not equating the unhoused to this mess, right? That this city has spent so much money of our general fund that goes to the police department and unchecked overtime, that we have the situation that we have now. We have people who are not taken care of. It is under this administration that we have seen that they didn't have a homeless plan. They didn't have an encampment plan. They were trying to implement some kind of plan without a plan. Like, how do you do that? I couldn't get away with that in my job. I would get fired, right? Like, this is at the ridiculous level. And instead of, like, you know, it's like turning the page and then people saying, oh, well, it's the homeless people's fault because they are lazy, they're dirty, they're this, they're that. When in fact, the reason why they're there is because our city prioritize developers, prioritize corporations, prioritize our police over everything, right? Over housing, over healthcare, over, you know, food security, all of those things, over creation of jobs, right? Like good paying jobs. And this is where we're at. And that's why we're at the place that we're at, is because Mayor Libby Schaaf continue to the legacy of disinvestment in Black and Brown and communities of color and immigrant communities in Oakland. And whew, I'm gonna get fired up. I don't know if y'all can tell. I don't know how long I have been talking about Mayor Libby Schaaf, not just when I was with Oakland Rising, but that this is why we are where we are today, right? And this budget that we're trying to fight for with Refund Coalition is about, yo, we didn't do this. We've been talking about this. CJJC been talking about this way post-pandemic. APEN has been working on this way post-pandemic, 20-something years, right? And now we are here and we are faced with this, like, slapping us in the face. And now we need to really find solutions that are not, so when the next shit hits the fan, that we can take care of our people and that we don't have to rush to create eviction moratoriums. That we actually are taking care of our people and every single person in Oakland can thrive.
Right. And I just want to say too, it feels pretty ridiculous also that, like, these basic human rights are the things that we're fighting for, right? Like, we're in the middle of a pandemic and we had to push for an eviction moratorium. It's like, bruh, like, you know, this is a global crisis and we're gonna evict. It just sometimes I just think about the things that we have to fight for and I'm like, that really like, yeah, I'm just like, really? Like, we've been in a global crisis for her and we're still going through it. Yeah. And then we're just going to be like, okay, we're going to open back up and then all these people are not going to have places to live. Like, yeah. I don't understand that. Yeah. And it just feels very like, it was like, wow. And it just shows like how little our people are at the forefront when, like, folks are like creating laws and creating, you know, these structures that we live in. And we know this stuff is driven by capital. We know that, but I'm always amazed. Always. Where I'm
because
like,
it's like, you're sitting there going, where is your humanity?
Right. And I'm just like, are you serious? Like, this is ridiculous. Like, our people are really dying. Like, literally dying at record numbers. Black, brown folks, you know what I mean? Like, everything. And I'm never surprised, but I'm always amazed. And I'm just like,
Right.
we got to do better. And you know, right now we're in this place with America where it feels very like kumbaya, like
I
racist.
like how you said how we are in the America.
Right. In America where it's like kumbaya, like, you know, we got rid of racism this summer, you know. And so since that happened,
well, we didn't do that with Obama. What are you talking about?
right. You know, Obama was the start of it, and then, you know, the summer after the uprisings, we got rid of racism. And so now, because of that, right, we're on the upswing.
Yeah.
And I just don't want us to be like distracted, right, by all of the like,
Yeah.
you know, all of the like glossiness of like Derek Chauvin and like him being convicted, and you know, just certain aspects of like not even just that, but like
right.
the fact that they're trying to make us believe that the pandemic is over and that we're just supposed to go back to normal because folks are being vaccinated, right? Like you know, folks are being vaccinated. Our folks are not necessarily being vaccinated. I know folks who have not gotten vaccinated who don't, right? So that means that like we still need to figure out like how we are caring for and protecting our folks' safety net, safety lines, and like not be blinded by like, oh, we're all vaccinated, so we can just go back to like, you know, like like people in the fog or whatever, right? Like, no, we shouldn't be getting like distracted by these like illusions of America.
Well, thank you for that segue, because Oakland Rising we are running a civic engagement program. We're hiring 20 people to go door knocking in District 5, 6, and 7 on the flatlands, specifically below Foothill, to all of our communities, to sign people up and follow up with people, because the issue is a lot of people are getting the first vaccination but aren't following up with the second. So we got to make sure that they get back for their second dose. And people are still, it's inaccessible for some people still, right? So getting people signed up on the doors, talking to them about that. And then also letting people know what kind of rights they have because of organizing. Organizers are good people, you all. We organized to get worker protections. And so we want to share out to the community what those protections are for people. So we're running that. So if you know some folks that are looking for work, we're paying $21 an hour. They also get food stipend, they get a travel stipend, and things like that. So and we provide all of the PPE and a letter for you to go and get vaccinated also. So so we're doing that. And then I just want to close out with like that the process from here on out. We're still waiting on the mayor. Libby Schaff, we see you. We don't see your budget, but we know what's in your budget. We know what you're prioritizing because we know where your moral compass is. It's in policing. It's not actually about helping your community. So, and helping only specific parts of this community, for her community, right? For developers, for corporations, for police who don't live in Oakland. So that we know that she's going to really push hard. She's been going hard. She's been on Fox News to tell everybody how we need to, you know, be giving more money to the police department and not into all of these other places. And so wanting to really emphasize that, folks, we're waiting on her budget. Hit up all your city council members. Today, there is a special city council meeting where they're talking about and trying to adopt the Reimagining Public Safety Task Force recommendations. So you can go to Oakland Rising, you can go to APTP, you can go to any one of the organizations that are part of Defund Coalition, including APEN and I believe CJJC too, that you can get that information on what are the recommendations, including overtime, capping overtime, you know, extending the macro program, getting resources to gender-based violence programs, and more and more and more. There's so many things, so many great things. So call in today. It should be starting in very soon, in an hour, right? In 10 minutes, I mean. So get on that call. And you can go to Oakland Rising, to any of our IG, to our Twitter. Y'all, I had
You
went off
back?
my
You back?
timer. I'm sorry. I have a timer on my apps, and I timed out. Anyway, so make sure you check that out. Call in, let city council know, let the mayor know where her priorities need to be. And do some of the things that you heard today in the next few weeks, right? So then in June, the council president Bass will put out her budget, her counter budget. And then basically every city council meeting until June 30th, we'll be really pushing hard on the details of that budget. So come out and support. Once we get that budget passed, don't forget, y'all, put pressure on the mayor and the administration to make sure that they are do implement the budget as passed by the city council. So thank you, Shaketa. Thank you, Ken. I really appreciate you all.
Thank you.
Yep. Go get them wings, Ken. I know.
Oh,
I will.
I'm gonna finish eating my yogurt.
Yep. Yay.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all for joining.